Greetings, team, and welcome to Meat Cutting Day 6 lecture. Today we're going to be talking about the magic of smoking. Traditionally, smoking was done in the fall to preserve food for the winter months. It was generally done in the fall also because it was the drier months. It wasn't as hot. It was easier to do stuff. In order to smoke, you must have ventilation. I'm sure you've all been at one point or another in your lives when you've been by smoke or smoking in an area that had no ventilation and you realized that it was not a good thing. For proper ventilation, we need to have intake and we need to have exhaust. Air comes in and assists in the circulation of the smoke. It goes around, over, and through the product. If proper airflow doesn't happen, then it will take on a very acrid, nasty, kind of ass-like flavor, so we want to avoid that. Smoke is the byproduct of burning wood. Oddly enough, when we apply a flame to a piece of wood, it ignites and burns. We all figured that out, right? We figured that out probably very early on. Matches, paper, flyer. Good. That's what smoke is. It contains hundreds of different chemical compounds. The two that we're primarily excited about are phenols and antioxidants. Phenols and antioxidants actually work as a preservative and help to extend the shelf life of the food. Woods, we all know, smell different when raw. However, smoke is smoke. When we burn wood, it's burning wood. If we had behind us multiple sheds, we had one with cherry, one with walnut, one with hickory, each one of them in their raw state would smell distinctly different. However, if we put each one of them in a different burner and then smell them, they would all smell, oddly enough, like smoke. You wouldn't say, oh my god, that's the most amazing cherry smoke I've ever smelled. You'd say, that smells like burning wood, right? The harder the wood, such as fruit woods, the slower the burns, and that's what we want to get. We want a nice, slow burn. You don't want to ignite the chips, you want them to smolder. Softwoods are highly resinous, which leads to acrid, bitter nastiness, so we want to avoid that. Mesquite is the one exception of wood that does have a definitive flavor and smell. You can taste something that has been smoked with mesquite and know right away this is mesquite smoked. There's three styles of smoking. Hot smoking, which is a single-chambered smoking apparatus. It has insulated walls. The goal of hot smoking is to maintain a consistent temperature. This is long, low, slow. It works really good if it's thermostatically controlled, and the average temperature of hot smoking is going to be 140 to 165. Now, in the heart of North Carolina, you've heard about barbecue. Barbecue is king here. Another method of hot smoking is, say that you have a smoke box on the side, you set your smoker at 200 degrees and you smoke a whole pig for 18 hours. It's freaking delicious. If you haven't tried it yet, you need to do it. I might make it a requirement to pass my class that you have to go to a pig picking. You must consume adult beverages and you must be involved in a pig picking. Alright, we'll go on. Okay. So, the second style of smoking is called cold smoking. It's a two-chambered smoking apparatus to keep the cold as smoke as possible. What you want to do is you want to create the smoke in one chamber and then draft it through some means into another chamber. Traditionally it was done on a hill, and at the bottom of the hill was a firebox, and then buried about 2 to 3 feet underground was a ceramic pipe that was surrounded by stones and then covered with dirt. Well, as this vent went up, the smoke would be chilled down, so it went to the shed at the top where they would have whole pigs or whatever it was that they were smoking. The smoke was very cool, so it didn't cook the product, it didn't coagulate the protein, and it didn't render the fat out, and that was what made it amazing. We can do it with a different cold smoker where you just reduce the temperature. Generally, you're going to have it in a separate chamber so that you reduce the likelihood of heating the smoke up. I have done it with old refrigerators. They work great. And then you draft it over. The smoker I made once was an old bun warmer that we turned into the smoke chamber. We then created some drafts by using metal piping. We put a cooler, big fish cooler, we drilled holes in it, we filled it with ice, that cooled the smoke down, and it was hunky-dory and deliciousness. The third style of smoking is the one with the most flexibility. It's called cooking with the addition of smoke. This temperature variance goes anywhere from 300 to 1600 degrees. Many styles use this. If you're working in a traditional restaurant where you're working on the grill station, if you lifted it up and threw some sticks that were soaked in wood, then that would be smoking. The primary objective is to cook with the addition of smoke. If you've ever been to a wood-fired pizzeria, that is essentially cooking with the addition of smoke. It produces a very amazing flavor. Um, you never want to soak your chips for smoking unless you're doing cooking with the addition of smoke, because you're going to be putting your chips right on direct heat. If you're doing traditional style cold and hot smoking, you want your chips to be dry because you don't want to bring water into your chamber. Water is an inhibitor of letting the smoke penetrate and actually settle on the product. Beef. Beef is of the bovine genus. The ones that are of best quality will be about 30 months old, and they will be primarily graze-fed, and they might have a grain finish during their last 30 to 60 days of life. The two most popular are steers and heifers. Steers are castrated males. The primary reason that they castrate the males is because anytime an animal ages, and boys can explain this, so can girls, that when you get to a certain age you just get angry and you stop playing with frogs and you start looking at other things, right? So the same thing is true of steers. When they get to a certain maturity, they actually start to get aggressive and they start looking at the heifers, and thoughts are going through their head. So if they castrate them, it focuses them on one of two things, right? Animals are focused on one of two things: eating and having sex. So if you remove the part that makes them want to have sex, then they just eat. Heifers are immature females that have not had a calf. Okay, that's important to remember. The less notable beefs are very funny. The bullocks, castrated males, they don't done so after sexual maturation, so they're very strong, very sometimes called chili cows, because they're the muscle fibers are generally much larger than we're used to. It's going to require primarily moist heat cooking application, but the flavor is going to be very gamey, high iron content. Bulls are 24 months old and they've not been castrated. They're primarily used for making more cows. Sidewinders are very interesting. They've been surgically rerouted so that the penis goes out to the side. These are used in a natural setting where instead of bringing in a bull that is primarily for breeding, they will actually order through the seed catalog, like Sears and Roebuck. They'll order some fancy semen. It'll come frozen, and then they'll call their artificial inseminator. Will come in, put the glove on up to their shoulder, and pop that baby in. And next thing you know, you have a baby. But the Sidewinder just marks them. Cows are mature females that are usually used for milk production, and calves are young cattle, either male or female, that have not reached maturity. There are 3 types of veal, and they are identified primarily based on their food. Okay, bob or baby veal, generally slaughtered 2 to 3 days old after birth, and up to a month, and weigh about 20 to 60 pounds. They represent a very small percentage of the market. Now, first of all, when we start talking about veal, don't be afraid of it. Veal is a byproduct of the dairy industry, and before we started raising veal at all, they were just thrown away. Because if you're a cattleman, if you're a dairy farmer, and you have a male, despite what the movie Kingpin might lead us to believe, males do not make milk, right? Not under natural circumstances. So if you have a male that's making milk, or if the milk looks like that bucket filled with kind of a chunky, white, milky substance, it's not milk, right? Think back to Kingpin. You'll get that all figured out. So veal are a byproduct of the dairy industry. Vealers range in age from 4 to 18 weeks and supply most of the veal market. Their average weight is about 80 to 150 pounds. Calves are older than vealers and usually 20 weeks old. These are ones that just haven't come to market weight quickly, so they get a little bit older. The problem with the veal getting older is that it develops color. Problem or not, it develops color, develops marbling, develops flavor. It's crazy. It's 125 to 300 pounds. Methods of raising veal. You have formula-fed or milk-fed, and this is what I was talking about in the previous slide. Formula-fed or milk-fed is raised in confined crates, and there's varying methods. Sometimes they're suspended from the crate. Sometimes they don't see daylight because they want to keep the animals dark, so they're drinking more. And there's many different stories. You can go online to YouTube and type in veal pens, and you'll get all sorts of things going on. This is not a pretty method of raising them. It's fed primarily a liquid or milk diet that is soy-based, because why would you take an animal away from a mother that's making milk and then give it milk, right? Defeats the whole purpose. So it's soy-based, and then they add nutrients and things to it. The problem with this style, and the problem with taking any animal, whether it's a human or an animal, away from their mother, is they're missing something very important. which gives them antibiotics and helps keep them healthy and prevents them from getting sick. It's called colostrum, and it's found only in the mother's milk. So if the animal isn't getting that mother's milk, the chances of it getting older are potentially decreased. The second variety is non-formula fed veal. They're generally allowed to graze, sometimes called free-range veal as a result. They tend to develop color in the muscle, and the muscle actually develops kind of a little bit of marbling. Veal purists, what they don't like is dark colored veal. If you're a veal purist, you want that pink, pasty looking, bland, and not very flavorful veal. Sorry, I'm not very biased on it myself. So. Next we have lamb, right? Lamb is of the genus ovine and divided in age through the use of break joint in the hind or front leg. Now, in the book it told you about ovis, right? Ovis is more of a wild species, and ovine is more of the domesticated species. Okay. The break joint, if you walked around on your tiptoes, you would actually be utilizing your ankle differently. If you're a four-legged animal, then obviously you're not going to need to have the balance of your feet flat. So that joint is going to give you more heft. It's going to also make you able to spring and bound on rocks and make you more sturdy. If you are a young animal under 12 months, that break joint is still flexible. It hasn't filled with calcium. We talked about calcification or ossification. So that bone hasn't become solid. So for a butcher, this is not a farmer's term. You won't see the farmer out on the field snapping the legs of young lamb to determine who goes to market. It's a butcher's term. So if they didn't get the age when they're processing it, they'll be able to determine the age based on that joint. And that's what we just talked about. Okay. Domestic lamb are raised in New Mexico, Montana, Arizona, Colorado. Pré Salé, which you read about in your book, is from Brittany and raised in the salt marshes. Delicious. If you ever have a chance to taste Pré Salé lamb, it's very good. It's nice and sweet. Domestic lamb in the United States tends to be very lamby, very gamey. It has a lot of fat on the outside, so if you don't like lamb, get it from a local farm and try it, because it's much different. Lamb is an animal from under 12 months old. Baby lamb is one that's sent to market before weaning, generally 6 to 10 weeks of age. Genuine lamb is from sheep less than a year old. Spring lamb, 3 to 5 months old, generally produced between March and October, hence the name spring lamb. Spring lamb is also indicative of an animal which is born naturally. That's the time of year that they are naturally born. A sheep or yearling is an animal from 12 to 24 months, so it's a year old. And then we have mutton. Mutton honey is an animal that's over 24 months. Very distinctive flavor, very strong, very particular market that's looking for this animal. Generally, it's going to be soaked in yogurt or something that has lactic acid in it that's going to pull out those strong flavors and make it not so lammy. The ewe is the mother, and the ram is not. The ram is the pop. Pigs. Pig is the domesticated mammal of the swine or porcine family. It's extensively raised everywhere in all parts of the world. Terms hog, swine, and pig are often used interchangeably for pig. It's one of the earliest animals domesticated. It was great to have around because they eat anything. Grading is done in classifications are 1, 2, 3, 4 in utility, and there ends the read-in. All right. Have a great evening. Make sure your notes are solid, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a great night. Bye-bye.